Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are making something very close to Creed's Green Irish Tweed. Now, Green Irish Tweed was released in 1985. It was perfumed by Pierre Bourdon, and it's still relevant today. You can still wear this today and not smell old, not smell dated. 3 years after this was released, Davidoff, of course, released Cool Water, also perfumed by Pierre Bourdon. But this fragrance is amazing, absolutely amazing. It's green, it's fresh, it's so easy to wear. It's appropriate for any occasion. It's a killer fragrance. If we take a look at the structure here, it is mostly aromatic, herbal notes. We have a lot of dihydromyrcenol in this formula, but it's balanced out by other notes to where we don't just get kicked in the face with like a cheap cologne smell. The balancing and blending of this is beautifully done. And this is where we're going to start today with our fragrance. We're not going to start with the base and work our way up. We're going to start with this green core. We're going to start with our aromatics, the herbals like lavandin, clary sage, peppermint, and we're going to add our green notes like Citral, Galbanum, Galbex. We're going to start with our green notes and then add in our florals, and then add in the bright top notes, and then at the end we're going to add the base, and then we're going to add in some of the lifting notes like the Precyclemone, some Lyral, Hedione, some Cetalox, or Ambrox DL. So this should be fun. I've made this before, long time ago. I didn't have Galbex at the time, and I didn't know how to dose a galbanum-like material as a replacement, so I accidentally overdosed galbanum. I think I used galbanum CO2, and it was very green. It was very waxy. It was very galbanum heavy. So I'm excited that this time I have all of the materials except for technically Chinese geranium. I do not have that. I have instead African geranium or Egyptian geranium. But aside from that, I have everything. So we're going to whip this up and see what it smells like. Now, this patent was from 1994, filed by Firmenich. I can't remember what this is. Maybe a masculine cologne is what it's defined as in the in the patent, but it's there. And I had made this about the same time that the Instagram channel Perfume Archaeology had posted it. It was a very nice alignment of the planets. I had just realized what this was when I saw the post. On that Instagram channel. It's a fantastic Instagram channel. If you're not checking out Perfume Archaeology and you are a DIY perfumer, or you just want to learn about perfumery, you're missing out. So definitely check that out. So let's get started today, like I said, with the dihydromyrcenol. Now, on an absolute basis, as far as the juice, the concentrate is concerned, dihydromyrcenol is 25% of the formula. Now, that's no joke, because if you know dihydromyrcenol, you know this stuff is a kick in the pants. So today, what I'm making is roughly an 8-gram sample. The concentrate is about 18%. So it's like, it's definitely a high-end, it's an eau de parfum, low-end eau de parfum, high-end eau de toilette. But let's start with the lavandin. I'm already getting it from the bottle. I'm sorry, the dihydromyrcenol. Again, if you are starting your perfumery journey and you're looking for things to buy as far as what materials, dihydromyrcenol should be on your list, especially if you're making men's fragrances or more masculine fragrances. All right. Dihydromyrcenol in the bottle. Next up, let's do our Clary Sage. Now, the Clary Sage I got from Perfumer's Apprentice when they were supplying this material from Russia. Well, because Russia has got issues with invading other countries, and there are sanctions and trade restrictions. Can't get this anymore, which is fine, because it turns out France makes some pretty good Clary Sage as well, or produces some good Clary Sage. So we'll keep using the Russian Clary Sage until we're all out of it. Now this Clary Sage is only 0.4% of the juice. Clary Sage is nice. It's similar to lavender, similar to Lavandin. It's Linalyl Acetate, heavy, but it's a little bit dirty. It's a bit dirtier, which I like. Next up, let's do some Lavandin. The Lavandin I have is Lavandin Grosso, France. 0.75% of the juice is Lavandin. I like Lavandin. To my nose, it might be a bit sweeter than the lavender I have, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay. Next, Linalyl Acetate. Yeah, Linalyl Acetate. Another material that needs to be on your buy list if you're just getting started. All right. Linalyl acetate is 1% of the juice. And it is a very common material. Okay, so we have some mint. Now, the formula in this patent called for Brazilian mint. And I did 2 minutes of Google searching. I was looking for Brazilian mint. What is the, most predominant mint produced in Brazil? I don't have any backdrop on it. But given the amount that's in here, it's 0.07% of the juice. And given the similarities between the mints that I have, as far as peppermint, double distilled, triple distilled, single distilled, I have spearmint, I have corn mint. At this level, it's mint. I think it's going to be fine. So we're going to go with peppermint. This stuff happens to be double distilled. I believe I got this from Liberty Natural. It ain't bad. It ain't bad at all. But only maybe 4 drops of this stuff. Oh, actually, no. This peppermint is old. It's old. It still smells good. But I think this peppermint might be 10 years old. I kid you not. This goes back to my soap making days. I used to have a little small Etsy shop called Ryan's Soap, and I had peppermint. It was wicked smelling stuff, the soap. But I've had that double distilled peppermint sitting in a fridge for that long. But it still smells good. It hasn't gone off, at least comparing it to the other mints that I have. Okay. That takes care of our aromatic / herbal notes. Peppermint. Now we have greens. Galbanum Oil, Galbex from Firmenich, Methyl Carbonate, which is a violet leaf note and it's very powerful, and Citral or Cyclau. See, I think they call it Zestover in the patent, but let's start with that. Let's start with the Zestover, i.e. Citral. Yeah, definitely green. Definitely green. Citral, it also does not take a lot of this stuff. I'm using this at 1% concentration, 0.28 grams. It is 0.03% of the juice. Don't want to overdo this. Working with green notes, they add some real color to color, depth, and just reality to your accords and what you're making. but it is easy to overdo. Now there's a lot of, is there a lot of Galbex in here? How come? Oh, I've been reading the wrong concentrations. With Triplau, it's 0.2% of the formula. Okay. Now Galbex, this is a Firmenich product. Galbex is green, it's floral, it's like galbanum-like note. It is a green-like note. This is 5.5% of the juice. There's a good amount of Galbex in here. Now, this is green. It's a bit more aquatic to my nose. It is also, gives me like hints of cucumber. I've got galbanum in there, but like pineapple, cucumber, just definitely watery green. Now this is the material I did not have when I first tried to make this, and so I used Galbanum CO2. Okay, Galbanum essential oil from Iran. I don't know if Iran is the only producer of galbanum. I'll have to double check that, but I hope there's not a hot war or even cold war over there. Not just because of the loss of human life. That is tragic. But it's one more perfumery ingredient that is lost to conflict. Now galbanum, I'm using this at a 1% concentration. This is also extremely green. It is also a bit waxy, milky, sappy. Again, I tend to liken this to the smell of my hands or work gardening gloves if I'm ever weeding outside. Galbanum used to be a major en vogue ingredient in the 70s and 80s for men's colognes. Yeah, 70s. 70s is about right. It's in everything, and it's strong. It was a strong note. Okay, methyl octene carbonate. This stuff is a beast. This is at 0.1% concentration. This is only 0.01% of the juice. But this is the violet leaf note that is inside of Green Irish Tweed. Okay. Was close to overdoing that. Okay, we have all of our green notes. I am going to this is called our green core. Let's get a little mix here. Oh yeah. Okay, we'll get a little dip. This is almost half full. It's almost half full. That means there's almost 4 grams in here. Or there is 4 grams in here. But most of it's dihydromyrcenol. Okay. Okay. It is green. It's green. It's dihydromyrcenol heavy. You can get the green notes like the Galbex, the galbanum, the methyl octene carbonate. Those green notes come through. I'm also getting Linalyl Acetate from the Clary Sage, Lavandin, Linalyl Acetate. To my nose, it's all like one note. Maybe with the Clary Sage, it adds a little bit of extra dirt, but the Linalyl Acetate's coming through. If I just smelled this, at this point I would not be able to say, oh, we're making Green Irish Tweed. No way. But I probably would say, oh, this is going to be a cologne. This is going to be for dudes. All right, let's put it down. Let's now do our more floral core. Here we're gonna have a geranium, linalool, real rose Otto. I've got real rose oil I'm gonna be putting in this. And then some Iralia, so we have some violet notes. Let's do this. Let's start with our geranium. Again, the formula calls for Chinese geranium. Don't have it. I have Egyptian geranium. Love this. It's floral and rosy, but it's green as well. So if you're making a fragrance that needs that floral core, that rosy core that so many fragrances need, or else it just feels empty, geranium is a great solution. Also, fun fact, Geranium Absolute is green. It's a beautiful color. I recently learned geranium oil, Absolute, does not come from the flower. It comes from the leaves. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? However, I've never actually smelled, I don't think I've ever smelled geranium flowers. So I wouldn't know, unless that's what I have growing in my front yard. I thought I bought roses, but they do not smell, which is very frustrating. Okay, next up, let's do linalool. Linalool, 4% of the formula. This is more of just like giving it body and a little bit of meat, so to speak. But linalool is light, it's floral, it's fresh, it's metallic. It's not heavy. You can accidentally overdose linalool and you're going to be fine. Yeah, see, I overdosed it on accident, but not worried about it at all. Next up, Oranger crystals. Now I like Oranger, only a little bit of this. These come as a solid. When I smell it out of the bottle, it reminds me of a few things. Orange, flowers, Pez, and cough syrup. It's what I get out of Oranger, a dilution of Oranger crystals. Now there's not much in here. This is methyl naphthyl ketone, also known as, if that makes any difference to you. But if you're looking at a formula and you see methyl naphthyl ketone, it's Oranger. All right. Let's do that. Let's do our Rose Otto. Now, if you don't have real Rose Otto from Bulgaria, I believe you can buy a product called Rose Essence from Firmenich. Rose Essence tries to be a copy of Bulgarian rose. If you buy Rose Jivko, that is meant to be a copy of Turkish Rose Otto, or Turkish Rose Oil. So if you don't have the real stuff, Rose Otto from Bulgaria, then Rose Essence will work. Now this stuff I got from Eden Botanicals. It's amazing. What's interesting though is it's a bit vinegary. It's like a honey that's trying to ferment, which you might know is weird because honey on its own won't ferment, right? It'll crystallize, but it's like a rose with honey that is trying to ferment. That's what I get out of this. Now, the last time I made this, I did not use real rose. I used Rose Jivko. All right, tear this. We're gonna get 6 drops. That'll be about 0.08. 0.08, 0.09, which is close enough. All right, next 2 materials. We have a violet material, N-methyl ionone. N-methyl ionone, otherwise known as Iralia, or isoraldine. 0.4 grams at 10% dilution. One drop short. This stuff is nice. I like the violet florals because it's definitely floral. It's but it's like clear. To my nose, it's it's centered, it's a little high pitched, but it's a clear, smooth through line. It's wonderful stuff. I guess it adds a different dimension to your rose, your geranium, your jasmine. Adds a slightly different dimension there. Last up, we have Damascone Alpha at 1%. This stuff is also strong, sweet, fruity, floral. I'm getting cherry, apple, 0.28. All right. Interesting story about the roses in my front yard. I recently read on the internet, so take it with a grain of salt, that many roses these days are being bred to not smell, because when they're used as, say, landscaping decor for hotels, restaurants, whatever, they don't want to attract bees. So they've started to design roses that aren't quite as pungent in their smell or as lovely in their smell. And I think I have some of those in my front yard. I'm really considering pulling them out because I got roses so I could smell them, and they don't smell. All right, so we just dipped, but I didn't write. So we're gonna put floral on this. This is number 2. Let's go back to our original green core, just refresh our memories. Dihydromyrcenol. I'm getting the methyl octane carbonate and the Galbex, just because of that green galbanum clarity, and the Linalyl Acetate and those associated Clary Sage and Lavandin. Yeah, so this is just pure green. Pure green. All right, next up. Nice. It just beefs it up. Beefs it up with the rosy materials. It's funny though, the oranger, I feel like I can pick that out. It's probably all in my head because there's so little amount of oranger. But yeah, that's nice. The Iralia, the N-methyl ionone, you can pick that out. But that's nice. Yeah, that's a great way to start. Now, at this point, I can recognize the core of Green Irish Tweed. Yeah, at this point, you can start to recognize this is the core. We're headed in that direction. Let's see how it continues to develop. Next up, we are going to add the top notes. We have Bergamot, Citral, Nutmeg, Juniper Berry, Allyl, Amyl, Glycolate, and then some orange, some Portuguese orange or sweet orange, but I got some stuff that's more high in aldehydes, so maybe more in the bitter orange direction while still being a sweet orange. So let's start with our bergamot. I'm using 100% here. This bergamot is almost 14% of the concentrate. Yeah, bergamot. Awesome. Absolutely awesome. Get 0.2. Good. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Bergamot, done. Next up, Citral. Citral, to my nose, is a lot like oranger. It's just got the same vibe to it. It's a bit creamier. Definitely a bit creamier, less cough syrup, more orange creamsicle, but the similar Pez floral citrus vibe. Citral is 0.8% of the juice, or in this formula, 0.12 grams. Now let's do this sweet orange. I'm excited about this. I haven't used it yet. I'm going to do it a dip. I found a supplier called the Perfumery. You've got to buy in bulk. Got to buy in basically 1 kilogram, 1 pound to 1 kilogram amounts. And I do believe you need to be have a proper, business license to purchase from them, because they're a wholesaler. However, they so far I've had great experience with their materials. They've got a Virginian cedarwood that's killer. This orange is sweet orange from Brazil, or it's from Portugal. I'll have to check the label, but they tag it as high aldehyde. So this is nice. This is just a touch brighter than the sweet orange I got from Perfumer's Apprentice. I don't know who supplies Perfumer's Apprentice with that orange. Wouldn't I be the fool if it was the Perfumery that supplied Perfumer's Apprentice? But as I'm remembering it right now, this is just a touch brighter. It's nice. It's very, very real. I feel like I just opened up an orange and I'm about to take a few bites. But this is going in. 2.75% of the juice. Ooh, that's a nice color. I hope you can see that. Here we go. All right. Good stuff. I'm glad I'm using this. Next up, some top notes and more effects, but that aren't necessarily citrus. We've got a woody, I can call it a top note, Juniper Berry. Juniper Berry is wonderful. It's definitely woody in nature, piney. Yeah, but a little sharp. It's just sharp. Belongs on the top end. Okay. Thank you, Juniper Berry. We'll do a couple more. We have Allyl Amyl Glycolate, adding a little bit of sparkle, green, pineapple. Yeah, it's green. A little green, a little pineapple. Where are you at? There's a lot in here, 2.2%. All right. Sometimes there's just a splash of this material in a formula. But given that this is green Irish Tweed, I guess we need a little bit more than a splash. All right. Last up, nutmeg. Nutmeg is a nice, spicy, fresh, spicy, dirty top note. At least I associate it with dirty. Tear. It looks like I'll need to make another dilute. Oh boy, do I need to make another dilution? Oh, yes, I do. All right, we're back. I made a new dilution of nutmeg, a material, by the way, that should also be in your organ. If you're starting fresh, nutmeg is in a lot of things. So, see how we're doing. Looks like we're mixed. We're good enough. So, nutmeg, 10%. We've got 0.2 grams at 10%. There's about 1.4% of the juice is concentrated in nutmeg. Okay. All right. So our, call it top notes, the extra color and body. Need to give this a little shake. Yes, I know. Oh, but you're going to oxygenate it and whatever. I need to mix it so I can test it, or so I can give it a little smell. Yep, it's done. Okay. Okay. Reminding ourselves, we have our green base. Yeah, green dihydromyrcenol, Linalyl acetate. We have our floral, the red florals, geranium, linalool, oranger. It's interesting how I get the violet leaf note from the methyl octane carbonate through the florals. Then we add our top notes. Nice. Interesting. Makes the greens feel brighter. The top notes here don't just add citrus, they enhance the green notes underneath. I wonder if we flipped that. What if we didn't add the green notes first and we did the bergamot, the orange, and we have that nice top? What then if we happened to incorporate the green notes? Would I say the same thing? That the green notes help the bergamot and the orange sparkle? Either way, it's great. Okay. That's great. Fantastic. We can go in two directions. I can add the base notes, or I can add I wouldn't say top notes. I've got some Lyral, which isn't really a top note. In fact, it's a base note in that its longevity is very long. I've got Precyclemone B, otherwise known as Mermac aldehyde. I always want to say mermaid aldehyde. Maybe that's because I have a 2-year-old girl, but my mermaid aldehyde, no. Precyclemone B I have, which is wonderful, very common in blue fragrances today. We have some Cetalox, otherwise known as Ambrox DL or Amber Naphthofuran, and Helianal. Let's add these, and then we'll add our base notes last. Let's add these. Let's start with our Lyral. Lyral. Occasionally, you'll see this in a formula just called cyclohexyl. Cyclohexal is what you'll see occasionally. Now at 10%, there's 0.4 grams. This is 2.75% of the juice. And typically what Lyral does is it adds a bit of body, but in a very transparent and uplifting way. Let's add our Helianal. Helianal is a bit like, dare I say, like Calone. Sometimes you'll see this as heliopropanol or ocean propanol. Most of the time, though, you just see it as Helianal. Here, not much. A drop and a half. How do you get a half drop? We splash. That's what we do. Splash. Perfect. Works every time. Helianal's nice. It's tough to pick up on its own, but it is definitely fresh, watery. I can't say ozonic. To my nose, not necessarily ozonic, but it does have a similar effect. Okay. Let's go up to Cetalox or Ambrox DL. This is a bit like Ambroxan. Should add a little bit of lift, a little bit of sparkle, but also because it's a base note, it should help with substantivity or longevity, I should say. But there's not much of this. 0.04 grams. Yeah, used in trace amounts. Your amber materials like Ambroxan, Ambroxide, Ambrox DL has a different effect on your fragrances. Of course it does. Dosing matters, right? Duh. All right, next up. Mermac aldehyde, Precyclemone B. This stuff is, when I smell it right out of the bottle, which people tell me I shouldn't do because I'm getting all the ethanol, the aldehydic nature of it is more in the back end. Okay, let's do this. It's more in the, I should say, background, not the back end. More in the background. Let's add it in, and then we'll give it a second smell. Okay, it's 0.28, so there's a good bit in here. Okay. Light aldehydic off of the strip, at least. I think I need to let it dry a little bit more. Yeah, I'll let this dry a little bit. No, my notes say aldehydic, citrus, grapefruit, muguet, ozone. It's a booster for fragrances requiring a fresh outdoors effect. Okay, noted. Strong and diffusive. Now, it's funny, you can smell it on a strip, doesn't seem to do much. You put it in a fragrance, kablow, you know, it goes to work. Kind of like Hedione. Doesn't smell like a lot on a fragrance strip, but it smells like a lot when you mix it up with other things. Okay, so let us dip. We'll tag, we will evaluate, and then we're going to add our base notes and see, do we have Green Irish Tweed? Okay. Going to remind my brain what I'm working with. We have our base green, our core green, very green, Dihydromyrcenol still there. Florals, yeah, beef it up. Florals, beef that up. Top notes, these are already starting to die down on the strip. But definitely brighten it up. Brighten it up, help sparkle. We have our effects. Yeah, there's a little extra there. There's extra sparkle. Sparkle is the best way to put it. There's extra tingle, zing. It's a little more shiny. Not metallic per se, but it's as if the bergamot and the orange, the limonene, that top zing is just, the volume is turned up a little bit on that, and it's just accentuated or amplified. That's nice. That's nice. Very nice. Last up, we have 5 more materials. We're going to do our Hedione, our ISOE Super, Veramoss Polysantol, Vertofix, and Labdanum Absolute. Did you notice in this formula there's not one single musk? Interesting, huh? Let's start with our Labdanum Absolute. There's only a splash of this. This is a 10% concentration, 10% dilution of Labdanum Absolute, and there's only 0.02 grams. So we really got a drop and a splash. There we go. Yep. Perfect. With this much labdanum, or this little labdanum, I have to assume that this does not contribute to what you smell, what the layperson smells. Perhaps what this does is it affects other materials around it. And I'm spitballing here, but I mean, I'm looking at this and I know how labdanum smells and typically how it reacts. That is not much. So perhaps it's the way it interacts with other molecules. Perhaps it does something in our brains where it's subconscious how we're interacting with this particular material at this level. Perhaps it's there and we can't quite put our thumb on it, but it adds to the complexity in some unknown way that our brains can't interpret. We just happen to understand it is more complex. I don't know, but that's very little labdanum to throw in a formula. Next up, let's do our Hedione. I'm going to be using a 50% dilution of Hedione. Usually when I use Hedione, I really like using Hedione HC or Carismol. I think Carismol is from IFF. It's got, as far as the cis isomer concentration is concerned, you've got Hedione is your base. IFF's Carismol has a little bit more of that cis isomer, and then Hedione HC has more of the cis isomer, And then I think Carasmol Super, I think that's another one, has an even higher. So it's like IFF and Firmenich kind of like stagger each other as far as the cis isomer. I have Hedione, Hedione HC, and I've got a bucket of Carasmol on a boat headed over here. Long story short, I usually like to use Hedione HC, something with more of the cis isomer. But this formula called for Hedione, not Hedione HC, nothing else but Hedione. So I'm going to use Hedione. And Hedione is 6.3% of this juice. Perfect amount. Perfect. This Hedione is diluted to 50%. I put a little bit of BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene, in it because when this goes bad, it's got a kind of sour milk smell to it. That sour milk smell can be hidden by top notes in your fragrance, but it's still there. And if you're making something like a Baccarat Rouge copy, and Hedione is a majority of your fragrance, you might smell it. So anyway, a little BHT goes a long way in helping your Hedione last. Let's come down to ISO E Super. 3.5% of the juice, almost 3.6, but not much is in here. Maybe just 2 drops. Yeah, that'll be okay. 2 drops will be fine. Okay, maybe a splash. Good. Good. Next up, we've got Vertofix. I'm using 100% here, trying to beef up the, because I predominantly work with 10% dilutions. If I were to make just a sample, my end result will be at a 10% concentration. I wanted to get this closer to a 20% because I believe this is released as an eau de parfum. So I didn't want a 10% Green Irish Tweed, test. I wanted something closer to 20. So usually Vertofix, ISO E Super, Hedione, those are my more highly concentrated or non-diluted materials that I'll put into my test so I can beef up the overall juice concentration. So Vertofix, there's more Vertofix in here than ISO E Super. And Vertofix functions similarly to ISO E Super, but it's got more of a dry, woody, leathery vibe to it. It's still just there for support. 0.12, ain't much, maybe one more drop. Perfect. It's there for support. It's there for support, but the nature of it lends itself well to leathery, bright, woody, green fragrances. 2 more. Veramoss Polysantol. So Veramoss, otherwise known as Evernyl, otherwise known as crystal moss, otherwise known as methyl atrarate. This molecule, methyl atrarate, is one of the more predominant molecules in oak moss. And if you were to get oak moss, drop it on a blotter, you're going to get some very nice, interesting, but nice top notes to that oak moss. Once those top notes go away, you get Veramoss. I'm sorry, I'm working with Polysantol. I opened up Polysantol. I'm trying to open up Veramoss. Okay. All right, let's do this. So we're at 10% concentration, 0.12 grams. All right. Veramoss is in. Last but not least, Polysantol. If you don't have Polysantol, it's okay. Ebanol might work, Bactinol might work. Those are similar. Similar in spirit. 0.2. All right, friends, the last drops from the last ingredient in here. So let's give it a little manual mix. I know. You're oxygenating it. It's okay. I can live with it. It is mixed. I'm going to dip this. I'm going to mark it final. Then I'm going to go through the steps, the evaluation steps that I have laid out over here. Final, number 5. First up, green core. Looking for dihydromyrcenol. Yeah. All of the greens. The Citral, Galbex, Galbanum, methyl carbonate. What's nice is that when you know what's in here, you can kind of go through a checklist. At least here I can say, okay, I know what's in here. Can I spot out these fragrances or these materials? The next step is, once I've spotted them, is to try to get the relative ratios. So that's good. Next up, the floral. This is like putting the greens through an amplifier, a rose-colored amplifier. Yeah, it's so interesting. The oranger crystals still do something to me. But the rose is nice. Geranium, Linalool, Damascone Alpha, that fruity Damascone Alpha. I can see how the Damascone Alpha and the rose Otto work with each other, given that they're both so fruity, or so sweet. With the rose Otto, it's got that honey aspect to it. With the Damascone Alpha, it's very fruity. Apple, cherry, that kind of rich, dark sugary smell. Here are the top notes. The bergamot, citral, orange. No, we didn't do the Precyclemone B here. We did our juniper and our nutmeg. Trying to pick that out, but alas, that will take more training. But this is a step up from, this adds just another layer, another dimension. Here are what I would call them effects. It's the Lyral, which, adds more body and clarity. Hedione, Precyclemone B. That's just nice. Very nice. It just adds a little extra sparkle. Next up, let me smell my shirt. Try to reset my nose. Final. Okay. That's good. It's very good. I'm definitely getting the base notes kind of put a smooth ground underneath it. I'm definitely getting green Irish tweed. However, my nose is a little burnt out. Also, when you first mix them in and you first blend it, what you get is like all of the smells stacked up and next to each other, and they're like sharp edges in between the materials in my nose. After a week or 2 weeks, those sharp edges start to blur and fuzz, and it gives way to a smoother, more balanced fragrance. I can smell that this is green Irish tweed. I know that in 2 weeks, this is going to be smooth. Or at least it's going to be smoother than it is right now. Let's do a skin test. Again, this is at 18% concentration. Dip it on the hand. Don't neglect a skin test. It smells different on your skin than it does on a strip. Yeah, that's nice. The citrus is extra bright. I know that'll die down as it matures. It's fantastic. Fantastic. Friends, thank you for joining me. Thank you for hanging in there. And until next time.